Hello, my name is Marcos Palma. Welcome to Foro Más Latino. Thank you for joining us once again. Today we're going to talk about the elections in San Bernardino, California. Particularly, we will talk with some of the candidates that are running for mayor. Let's keep in mind that this city is facing a municipality bankruptcy. Two of the councilmen are facing unrelated criminal charges. One of them recently resigned, and even worse, the police chief, Rob Handy, just resigned as well. The city is currently in a fiscal crisis. For the position of mayor, there were initially 11 people running. A week before the election day, November the 5th, there are still 9 candidates. Wendy McMamack, Ricky Van Johnson, that is an incumbent, Rick Avila, a building contractor, Henry Nickel, a financial analyst, Richard Castro, retired teacher, Drake Crawford, a public works employee, Kerry Davis, an account, Carmel Rowe, a real estate, Matthew Corner. Let me mention that there is another candidate by the name Concepcion Powell who has not returned our phone calls or emails. We do not know if she's still running or not. There is no way to communicate with her. Today, we have some of these candidates. We will ask them about their campaigns, their outreach to the Latino community, the budget, the bankruptcy, and the division between the Latino and the African American community. First of all, welcome to our show, Foro Más Latino, Mr. Avila, Mr. Crawford, and Mrs. Rowe. Thank you very much for your time. We know that you're very busy, working hard to make this city the city that is in a mess. Politically, it's in a mess. Fiscal, financial, is also in a mess. Before we address those issues, I would like to let the community know about your qualifications that makes possible that you're running for that position. But we'll start with you, Mrs. Rowe.
My name is Carmel Rowe. I am a 37-year resident of San Bernardino. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Marketing and Public Administration and Public Relations from California State University. I am a first-year law student. I have also been through bankruptcy 3 times, and I have beat a major bank in court due to bankruptcy. I'm a bankruptcy expert. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, please.
Thank you. My name is Draymond Crawford, running for the position of mayor in the city of San Bernardino. I'm a resident of 20 years of this city, 44 years of this county. I have a background, military background, United States Marine Corps, served 10 years, law enforcement career, 10 years, and currently in the last 10 years of my life, I've worked in construction and working for the city of San Bernardino for the last 7 years. I've been involved in nonprofits and also worked as a police commissioner for this city for the last 8 years. So I've been through the last 4 chiefs who came here. Like I said, I've been involved in a lot of the background things that have happened in the city, trying to push forth positive policies that would help create revenue for this city. But as we see where we're at now, you can't force folks to do the right things. So that's why I'm stepping forward to make sure we go forward with this city.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Avila, please.
Yeah, my name is Rick Avila, born and raised in the city of San Bernardino, born at St. Bernardine's Hospital. My mother was born here, and our roots go back over 100 years deep. And this is my 3rd time running for mayor, and I knew that city was in bad shape over a decade ago. This is why I ran in 2005 and in 2009. But I'm going to let my background and my experience in construction lead the way. Anything we do and to build our city, we have to have permits. Everything's going to take construction. Whether you have new buildings, substandard buildings, we have to bring them up to code, and that's where I can help in the city of San Bernardino in the engineering department, the planning department, and the building department as well.
You mentioned that this is your 3rd time to run for the mayor.
Yes.
Why you keep looking for that position?
This is my city. This is all I know.
Okay, what is the problems that you see in your city right now compared to the last times that you were running for that position?
What I was saying back in 2005 and 2009, it's all coming out. We have corruption. I mean, we already knew what happened last week or a week and a half ago. It's all coming out now.
Mrs. Rowe, what are the problems that you see right now in the city that they're facing right now?
Problems with the city right now are diversity. The city is divided. Every time you turn on the TV where every time you go somewhere, everybody is fighting and pointing the finger. And what everybody needs to do is they need to stop pointing the blame. They need to take responsibility for their own actions. And they actually need to lead the city. Me, as mayor of San Bernardino, will lead the city, will undo the diversity that's been done, and will bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
How would you do that?
Well, you get out and talk to them. You get public input. You invite the community in. In order to actually preach to somebody or to get close to somebody, you have to know them. You have to walk next to them. I've just recently attended the police academy. I went through 8 weeks of the police academy. Now I know the police. Now I know what they need. I know how to help. I've been in City Hall. I've been 37 years. I've seen it. I'm a real estate professional. The city needs housing. The city needs economic development, and we definitely need revenue.
Do you think that this is part of that we were watching nationally also, that we have like a divided country that we have here in the San Bernardino city also? How do you see that?
We do have a divided country, and the divided country, it always goes back to the haves and the have-nots, truth be told. But in San Bernardino is more like a melting pot. So as far as nationality, we can all get along. It's mostly the politics that can't get along, or it's mostly the people in office, and they don't sit around and listen to the city. If we listened for even 5 or 10 minutes, we could all get somewhere as a united community.
Mr. Crawford, why would you join that community? How did you face those problems that they mentioned?
First off, you look at what the common goals are for the city and every resident in that city. All of us have common goals that we want to reach for our own families. One is have good jobs, a clean city, and a safe city, and good schools for our children. Those are common no matter what side are you on, haves or have-nots, Democrats or Republican. Those are essential values, family values, that we all hold personally in our hearts. Those are the things that are going to bring us together by achieving those goals. San Bernardino has become fractured in our service delivery and how things are getting done. That's why certain parts of the city do look nice and other parts have been neglected, because we have not been equal across the board in providing that safe environment, providing those good jobs, and providing those good schools across our city. Once we create that atmosphere in our city, everything else comes in line.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. We have to take our first break. You're watching Foro Más Latino. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. We are talking with some of the candidates running for the city mayor in San Bernardino. And we have Mrs. Rowe, Carmen Rowe, Rick Avila, and Draymond Crawford. Talking about the endorsement that you have received, who's giving you their support, Mrs. Rowe?
The city of San Bernardino has given me their support. The businesses of San Bernardino have given me their support. My father has given me his support. And most of all, Jesus Christ has given me my support.
What about you, Mr. Crawford?
Mostly my endorsements have come from my family and close friends. I have a lot of endorsements from the employees of the city itself, since I am an employee. So I've got a lot of support for those who we call boots on the ground, the ones who provide the actual services to this community itself. I've tried to avoid the pitfalls of the large unions and so forth, to try to be independent. And I think that's what people are looking for, somebody who can be an independent leader without being beholden to the unions or any other special interests in this city.
What about you, Mr. Avila?
My main contributor is Rick Avila Construction, which is myself. It's hard to go out and get some money. I'm not a professional beggar, and that's the way I see it. And I say it like it is. I'm also being endorsed by a Democratic Central Committee and a Democratic Women's Club in Fontana as well, which the Central Committee is a pretty big deal. And all my family and friends, I have over at least 1,000 family members in the city of San Bernardino. We go back 100 years deep. And my classmates are still here from high school, from grammar school schools. They're still here.
How much money does a mayor make in the city of San Bernardino?
The mayor makes somewhere between, I would say, 80 to 110,000. I can live off of that. but as a council member, I said at one of our debates, council members shouldn't get paid a dime. It should be voluntary only. $50 a month. I mean, you're going to have the result that we had just a couple weeks ago when somebody doesn't have they need to be well off to be a council member, but the mayor's 80 to 110,000. If anybody's knows it,
from 80,000 to 100,000.
Yeah, if anybody knows the exact, let me know.
Well, that's important. It's important because there is other cities that they make $800. There's nothing, but they're still running for that position.
Yeah.
And how important it is for somebody running that position. That's why I asked you that question about how much money makes, because it's nothing $800 compared to $80,000 to $100,000 a year. That means it's a very important position.
It is. It's a $95,000 a year position. It's half of a Supreme Court judge.
Have you ever run for any public position before?
No, I have not. I've been self-employed my entire life, and I've made anywhere from $60,000 a month to $80,000 a month, been able to save $50,000, $60,000. I've made between $300,000 and $500,000 a year.
Since you work in the real estate business, what is the situation in San Bernardino about real estate?
The situation is City Hall. You can't get anything done. They have 2 people up in building and safety. You have the city attorney who pretty much has the city on lock. You have a city that hasn't been rezoned, and you have a city that is not friendly to investors or people coming in and trying. We also have all the code violations that they put on the banks, which make it, even for short sales. I had a single mother couldn't short sell her house because of a $6,000 code fine that was just for a brown piece of grass. City Hall is backwards. We need to promote home ownership. We need to work with the banks, and we need to stop the foreclosures.
When you mention not friendly business, what do you mean, if you can elaborate? Can you name some of the people that is not friendly with business over there right now?
The city attorney, James Penman, is not friendly with business. He does not allow any business that does not go through his office. Code enforcement is not friendly. Personally, I have a $6,000 lien on my property that I never even got a piece of mail on. They've told my father, hey, we can put fines on people and not even send you guys letters, and you won't even know. So that is hurting San Bernardino. It is not helping San Bernardino at all. This is what creates the abandoned, boarded up houses that then the police have to go out to is the city. The city has created its own problem.
Mr. Crawford, you've been working close with the city as a public employee.
Yes.
What do you see inside? Because you're closer to the city.
Right.
What can you tell us about it? Because we talk about corruption, we talk
Right.
about bankruptcy, but
Right.
you've been closer to that.
Believe it or not, it's been the employees that have finally gotten the ear of our elected officials over the years to bring forth a lot of the things that have came out recently. It was the employees who first reported the discrepancies with the community building up in North Vermont area that prompted an investigation that Mr. Penman took forth to the DA's office against former Councilman Chaz Kelly. It was the employees who brought the attention to the council of how the funds of the Integrated Waste Department, which is basically our refuse, has been mishandled, mismanaged, where funds were coming out of the department illegally being transferred into the general fund. It's basically been the employees that have been blowing the whistle on a lot of activities that occurred over the last decade and a half, trying to bring things to light and trying to bring the warning to our elected officials themselves. But like I said again, when those elected officials ignore the warnings, refusing to pay attention, this is the result you get.
If you become mayor of the city of San Bernardino, would you do an investigation about those people that made that kind of perjuries or anything that way they make the city declare in bankruptcy? What would you do?
The first thing we have to do is do a complete audit of every department in the city and make sure that the funds for those departments are properly being allocated for that department. There are several departments that are being picked over and picked through to pay for other services in the city which are incorrect in doing. Some of them can be borderline illegal, where we're using we call enterprise funds, which are protective funds under Prop 218 to pay for other services in the city. So those are the things that have to be looked upon and make sure we are conducting our business correctly within the city and not raiding other funds that should be protected.
Mr. Avila, what's your take about the 11 people that were running for that position? I don't think so because of $80,000 or $100,000 a year, but do you think besides the corruption or something else that makes this election 11 people working for that?
Yeah, 11 people is a lot of people running, and if all my candidates knew that something was happening like I did, I knew the city was going in a downward spiral over a decade ago, they should have ran then. I still think that there's people supporting them that's part of the system as well. I'm not going to say any names, or there is a lot of people running. It took a police sergeant, I believe, for the city of Bell to bring the city of Bell to its knees, and it cost him his job. And I think this is what's happening here in the city of San Bernardino.
And they need another police officer to talk about that?
Yeah.
What about you?
What
about you?
Oh no, I don't have the qualifications to be a police chief, but
no,
Dre,
but about to mention the people that they're right. We have to take a break, and You're watching Foro Más Latino. We take a break. When we come back, we talk about the proposals to create jobs and their outreach in the Latino community. I'll be right back. Once again, thank you for joining us. Now I would like to ask about your proposals to boost the local economy. We'll start with you, Mr. Avila. What would you do to create jobs in this city, and what kind of jobs?
Well, right now, as a general engineering contractor, I have one of the biggest projects in the last decade. I'm a prime contractor on the Kendall Plaza, which we're building the shopping center on Palm and Kendall. And it's going to employ, it's going to have 51 stores. It's going to employ between 5 to 25 employees, depending on what businesses are going there. We have a restaurant, we have a wobble grill, a dentist office. But that's not really big enough. What I want to do is concentrate on Norton Air Force Base and bring in high-paying union jobs, manufacturing jobs with the showroom. I want to sell what we manufacture at the base. And I also want a rail spur going to the base so we can be the most unique airport in the West Coast of the United States that would offer trains, planes to trains. With import-export, we will have more companies worldwide coming to the city of San Bernardino. And from a bankrupt city, and if we have a rail going there, and with our manufacturing warehouses, we'll be one of the wealthiest cities. It'd be kind of ironic. And I can see it happening in my term. It can happen quick. So
Mr. Crawford, what about you? What kind of jobs will you bring to the city?
Well, what I research is looking at the trends across the country and what's going to be sustainable here in San Bernardino. And what I've discovered is that the medical field is going to be the biggest wide opening, sustaining employment field that we can bring to this area. We already have two of the, I call the triangle. We have two sides of that triangle already through our educational with Cal State San Bernardino, Valley College, Loma Linda, University of Redlands, and all the other vocational colleges that really promote medical field trainees. All we got to bring in is the research development and the manufacturing of medical goods and services here, and that way provide not just a few hundred jobs. We're talking about 30 to 40,000 jobs. That is a major impact to any region. And it'll take a partnership from Redlands, Loma Linda, Highland, San Bernardino, Colton that has a lot of this medical research already in place through Arrowhead Regional, Loma Linda University, Hospital, and so forth to lure these other companies here that manufactures these medical supplies. We are the only VA hospital in the 80 square miles of this area. We need to be able to transform that into what we call the Walter Reed of the West Coast. That'll be able to bring veterans here, bring their families here while they're being treated for all these war-type injuries and also the mental issues they're going through. I've met a lot of young veterans coming back from the theater of war, and they're still having issues. They're getting jobs, but they're having problems maintaining work because of the mental problems they're having fitting back in society. So there's a lot of things that we can do here to help our people who are coming back and also create jobs for those in that industry. And the medical field can support the jobs and sustain the economy of San Bernardino.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mrs. Rowe, this is investments, takes investments to come business to the city. So far, have you told to people that they're creating to come up to the city of San Bernardino to make investments?
Well, pretty much the people who want to make investments in the city have been scared off by the city themselves. I am a real estate professional, and I've spoken to a lot of other real estate professionals and like IVAR, TIGAR, and different associations. And developers, they don't want to come here because we are not user-friendly. If we create a plan, we have a portal, and we we automate things. We put things online. We make it easy. We make us user-friendly. We could have Highland Avenue open in 30 days, 60 days. You know, we need to educate our people. We can't just say, okay, we're going to bring in all these people and then leave everybody else hanging. We need to open up what we have. We need to rehabilitate what we have, and we need to educate our people so that we can grow them up and out instead of trying to bring in, because we will never get rid of what we have overnight.
As an expert in real estate, residential and commercial, what would you do with the Carousel Mall?
I would turn the Carousel Mall into the largest scooter bike park in the world. I would also have a lot of places for food. I've spoken with Generation Now, and they'd also like to turn it into a community center. That mall is so big that you can do anything and everything with, but going around there talking to people, you cannot get a lease in there. They want you to go month to month. And as a business, there's no way you're going to go month to month, because why would you spend all that money in opening and starting costs to go month to month? Also, Hardy Brown School, I've spoken with them, and they were interested in leasing out more of the building, and they can't even get anybody to give them an answer. They had people come from Sacramento and all over the world to go over this proposal, and they couldn't get anybody from the city to help them, and they were pretty embarrassed.
What's your take about the incumbent, Chas Kelly, that he dropped out his candidacy because of he's facing charges?
I feel sorry for the guy, that he let money and the political world surround him. My heart goes out to him and his family, but you know, what happens in the dark, it always comes to light.
Mr. Crawford, about the divisions between the Latino community and the African American, have you seen that as a public worker in the city of San Bernardino? Because there's people in the street that they told me that there is rivalry between them.
There's always been a certain amount of friction between the Latino community and the African American community. And it really goes back to both communities trying to strive to be a part of that American dream. And as you see yourself trying to rise up and you're still trying to bring your culture with you, you tend to have, I would say, a bumping effect on those who may have been here already. The Latino community demographically is the majority of Southern California. African Americans' numbers are dwindling, and that makes it even more of a friction right there, because one group sees its importance and influence shrinking as another begins to grow. So we got, once again, we got to find the common things that bind us together.
What will be that common theme? What do you think? Safe
streets, good schools, good paying jobs. Any community that has those three things right there don't have the division in cultural things, does not have a division in social things and so forth. That's what I say, it's common things that bind us together. But when we don't have those common things, we resort back to cultural differences and so forth.
Have you seen that, Mr. Avila, about the division between the African American and the Latino community?
Yeah, what's going to help our Latino community is the new freeways we have. We're going to be able to go on 5th Street on Mount Vernon, get off on Baseline, go straight to Mount Vernon. And my parents grew up on Spruce and Gardner, right in Mount Vernon. My grandfather built that house, Spruce and Gardner. And my parents remember before there was a freeway there. All the railroad tracks were there, and they would have to cross them all. But that did divide the city back in the 60s and 70s when they built that freeway. But now that we can be reunited again, the true Route 66 is Mount Vernon. We celebrate it on East Street all the time, but that brings a lot of people together as well. But as mayor, I want to say this, I will bring the Route 66 back 3rd week of September if I'm mayor.
We have no more time, so I'm going to ask you, first of all, to all of you to face it to the camera and tell the people, why do you think that you have to be the next mayor of the city of San Bernardino? I'm going to start with you, Mrs. Rowe, please.
I feel that it's my duty to the city to become the servant leader of San Bernardino for the next 8 years. I feel it's my duty because I am honest, I am God-fearing, and I can bridge the gap between all of the communities. Every single day for the last 18 years, I've walked and traveled the streets. I am my own boss. I know every street. I know every community. I know where all the crime is. I know how to stop it. I know how to work with the police. I definitely know how to navigate through bankruptcy. I can save people's homes. I can create foreclosure reform instantly, and I can get rid of all the boards up and down Highland Avenue and Baseline, therefore creating a safe environment. I was also a child here, and I know that our youth have nothing here. I can create a safe environment for our youth. I can create fun for our youth, and I can make this city a place where people want to come and want to act. And I can create a community of unity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crawford, please.
I'm running for mayor for one reason only, to make the future of San Bernardino for the next generation. We have to create an environment that makes us business friendly and acceptable to those who want to live here and raise their families here. I have the plans that people asked about, what's the future of San Bernardino? You got to have a plan to start with, and you bring that plan forward to all areas of the community and our neighboring cities. We have to join together to bring this, not this city of San Bernardino, but this region up. It has all been ignored all too long, and we need to move forward and make sure we are the inland empire and not the forgotten empire. of Southern California.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Avila, please.
This is my city. I was born and raised in the city. My parents go all the way as deep as 100 years. I know the lay of the land. The Central City Mall was my playground when I was 10, 11 years old. With all my cousins, we'll go to, it only costs 10 cents to ride a bus to go to the mall. Spend there all day, summer day. And the streets, you can't do that nowadays, and the streets are not safe. We have to make the city safe again. And when I was a kid, all the police department, all the fire department, they all lived in the city of San Bernardino, and that's my goal. If you want a job in the city of San Bernardino as mayor, you're going to have a San Bernardino residence. So shop San Bernardino, hire San Bernardino. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avila. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Good luck. Thank you, Mrs. Roth. Good luck, and happy Halloween. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to some of the other candidates running for mayor for the city of San Bernardino. Thank you for joining us once again. We're talking with some of the candidates that are running for mayor in the city of San Bernardino. And now we have Richard Castro. He's a retired teacher. Thank you, Mr. Castro, to be with us. We have Henry Nicol, a financial analyst. Thank you, Mr. Nicol. We have Mr. Corner. Mr. Corner, thank you so much for being with us. And we have Wendy McCammach. Thank you very much. You're running also for that position for mayor for the city of San Bernardino. We're going to start the same question for you. We're going to start with you, Mr. McCammach. If you can tell us about your qualifications to run for that position, please.
Thank you for the question. My husband and I own 3 small businesses. We employ about 20 people, and my husband actually started the businesses back in 1982. So for 31 years, we've been in this community. We make payroll every other week for all these years, and we've managed to stay in business in a town that is very difficult to keep in business. We're very proud of our accomplishments, but more importantly, I've been a city council member for 13 years, and I do understand what has happened, what went wrong, and what needs to be different, what needs to change in order to bring the city back. So my opinion is that I'm completely qualified. I am a licensed tax preparer, and my job in my private business is to basically save as much tax money for people as is literally possible.
Mr. Corner, please.
Well, my educational background is in economics. I started a business in my last year of university, and it was teleport networks that provided wireless internet access in public places, including coffee houses and other places like that. It was through that experience that I was able to develop more of an entrepreneurial mindset. I think I've always been entrepreneurial throughout my entire life. But it's precisely these kinds of businesses that the city of San Bernardino and the rest of the Inland Empire are going to need in order to increase the exports that the city generates, because that is the main way that the community is able to bring money into the city. I would also say that one of my expertise is not only in economics, but in strategic planning, marketing, and creative, as well as urban design. And all of these things will be needed in order to make an effort over the next 4 years to market the city, particularly to new residents that are more affluent and more well-educated, because we need to have a greater mix of a population here in order to have a sustainable economy. Unfortunately, for the most part, we've only seen a concentration of a population where there's a tremendous amount of poverty in the city, and we can only get upward mobility for many of these people if we have this greater diversity. So my biggest goal over the next 4 years is to attract these people, to increase the population, and to make sure that we don't have the existing people who are currently living here displaced when we bring enlarge the city, essentially. Make it a bigger city for the Inland Empire.
Thank you, Mr. Corner.
Historically.
Now, Mr. Nicol, please.
Well, I was born in San Bernardino, raised in San Bernardino. I attended Cal State. I held a degree in economics and government. I began my career at the United States Treasury Department as an analyst in Washington, D.C. I have since moved back to Southern California. The last 7 years, I've served as an analyst for the Riverside County Transportation Commission. And for the last 6 years, I've served in both appointed and elected office in San Bernardino County. So Long story short, I know a bit about finance, I know a bit about public policy and public service. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Castro, please.
Yes, thank you. I've been a teacher in this area, San Bernardino City Unified School District, for 28 years. I grew up in the Inland Empire. My parents came from San Bernardino. And, of course, when I went away to school, it was to a very nice place called Santa Barbara. Going to Santa Barbara and then coming back to San Bernardino, obviously there's a big difference. Even though there's a university here as well, which is Cal State San Bernardino, I right away began to really see that there's a big difference. The difference only wasn't in the universities, but also of the city. And I didn't quite understand why there was such a big discrepancy between two places where there are mountains that surround the community. Growing up here, I always thought this was the best place. I still think it's the best place. But being a teacher, I realize that there's a lot of things that have to have improvement. That being said, people look at this place and say, well, how are you going to make these changes? Why are you here? Well, as a teacher and having students in 6 classes many times every year for 30 years, that's a lot of people that are out on the street walking in this community, living in this community without things like jobs or the same things I saw in Santa Barbara. We have mountains here, we have water here, we have a lot of things here, but one thing we need to have is a unified city. Unlike San Bernardino, Santa Barbara does not have a dividing street. San Bernardino does.
What would you do to put together?
The very first thing is much like we did in the classes. When you bring people into the classes, you have to have equity and equality across the board. You have to treat each individual, because that's what we stress as a teacher, that we have to treat each individual as an individual. That's very difficult. We have a lot of people running for positions here. We have business people, we have people that are good with numbers, we have people that are good with real estate, we have all kinds of things. This is probably one of the most diverse group of people running for a mayoralship in many, many years in probably any municipality throughout the nation. A lot of it has to do with their dissatisfaction. Me being a teacher, I not only teach people that become these people, but I also work with students on a constant basis from all walks of life. We bring them together like we do as a classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Now I would like to ask you, Mr. Nicol, about, since you're an economist, what would you do to get rid of the bankruptcy? What would you the first thing that you do it for the city?
Well, I think it's important for us to understand that this didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. I really see the recovery as an effort that's going to require several election cycles to fix. And whoever gets elected in this election cycle will have a very, very difficult job. One of the things that I've stated is my intention to serve for 4 years and then step aside and let someone else serve. I think given the scope of the issues that we face, we not only have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. Currently, the city generates about half the revenues it needs for a city this size. So in addition to looking at what we need to do in terms of immediately addressing the fiscal bleeding in our city, we also need to make sure that we do not engage in excessive cuts that will damage public safety and that will damage our ability to attract the businesses and attract the revenue and ultimately attract the customer base that we need throughout the city to build our tax base and generate the revenues we need to get out of insolvency.
So far, what is the budget that somebody has?
Yeah, currently we have a budget equivalent to the city of Colton. I know Mr. Crawford has, I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's done an excellent analysis in terms of where we are at financially. And we're currently at about $160 million in terms of our annual revenues. That's
From that 160 million, how much goes to what percentage goes to public safety?
Well, obviously a significant percentage has to go to public safety. I mean, the first job of government is to provide for the protection of life and property.
I'm sorry, what was the percentage?
The current percentage is about 75 to 80% of the existing budget. Now, that needs to be put in perspective because, again, we are only generating about half the revenues we need. So we always want to look at expenditures. We have to look at how we are going to generate revenue. That has to be part of this discussion.
I'm going to ask you to hold it. We have to take a break, but you're watching Foro Más Latino. I'll be right back. Thank you for joining us once again. We're talking with some of the candidates that are running for mayor for the city of San Bernardino. And now I would like to ask Wendy McCormick, since you've been the incumbent in the city, you've been for 13 years, did you see about the bankruptcy come out? Did you see that there were some problems, and didn't you say nothing, or did you mention something about that?
I did not say nothing. I said quite a bit, and I've said quite a bit every year for 13 years. Back in 2010, I knew the budget wasn't balanced. As a matter of fact, I voted no on that budget, and I voted no on many budgets over 13 years. I saw too many what you might call non-essentials inside the budget. Programs that had no sense of accountability, programs that might patronize a few votes here and there, but never really solved the city's intrinsic problem. And I have been the most outspoken council member against spending policies that literally sent us into bankruptcy. But more importantly, there were other revenue ideas and revenue generation ideas that were pushed away by the mayor and the majority of the council. And those would have been additional revenues paid for by other people coming into town, not current residents. But instead, they chose to try to argue for additional sales tax. Well, an additional sales tax above and beyond what we already have would have been worse for this community and every single resident in it.
One of the candidates before, in the two segments before, Mrs. Rowe, mentioned about that there is no friendly business in the city. Did you see that?
I'm in business in this city. And I've
Are
been
you agree
in
with
business.
that is not friendly business?
I am going to suggest that there are problems on the floor where you go in and get permits. There are definitely problems there. There is a disconnect between many of the departments. They don't talk to each other. Unfortunately, that's typical of government. It's not typical of small businesses. They communicate with their employees. I just got done with a very large business education roundtable meeting, the second one of its kind, that I originated, and the conversation was very clear about what the problems are in the city. And I brought in business leaders and successful builders and successful job creators that have some solutions, but most of it just revolves around communication and making sure that whoever walks in the door to build business or build a building or bring in new jobs through a facility have the ability to know exactly what they need the first minute they walk in, and there are no surprises on the back end. That's the goal.
Mr. Corner, about you're a financial expert. You're an economist too.
Well, that's my educational background.
Why an economist to solve this situation,
Actually,
besides all the corruption that faces this city?
It is precisely because the city has had decades of disinvestment, where the incentives for investment and reinvestment have just sort of evaporated since the 1950s. I mean, when we started building the freeways and we started destroying the trains and the trolleys, the reasons for investing and reinvesting in San Bernardino were directed towards places like Rancho Cucamonga, Yucaipa, places that had orange groves where new construction fled, essentially. And many of the middle class and the upper classes fled to those places too. And so what we were left in the city was essentially a declining tax base. It's been a tax base that's been declining over several decades. So this isn't just a matter of corruption. It's not just a matter of the special interests that have been financing many of these campaigns, unduly influencing the public policy for their benefit and against the interests of the citizens of the city. It has been a very complex problem that has many facets to it. So in order to understand what not only is happening in this city and in this region, but what's happening to the economy across the country and around the world, we have to think in a very different way. I would say that one of the biggest issues is that, for the most part, the public officials in this area have thought that logistics, construction, and manufacturing were good enough for the Inland Empire. And in the new economy, that's not the case. We have to have creative class industries, a base of these creative class industries. Not that everybody will work for them, but that we have to have a few companies like Esri, which is headquartered in Redlands, Esri is a very large technology firm that has offices all over the world. And the founder of that company is so interested in connecting to San Bernardino and in changing San Bernardino into a larger city that he is willing to put the Esri's money into the maintenance and construction costs for a station along the light rail line between San Bernardino and the headquarters.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
exactly what we need more of.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask you, Mr. Castro, about recently the chief police, Rob Handy, resigned his position.
Yes,
He was making $237,000 a year, and now he's making $212,000 a year.
Yes, it was a very interesting and curious situation that evolved. There's always been this talk about competition between the mayor and the city attorney. And of course, the mayor was saying that the police was on the side of the city attorney. When everything came out in the end, when the police chief actually said why he was leaving, there was a piece on the local newspaper stating that it was due to a lot of things that were coming down the wire, so to speak, coming to the wire, showing that there was a lot of bad feelings about sustaining the police department. However, in the final end, when it actually came out in the paper, one of the things that popped out that the chief of police said was that the city attorney actually overstepped his bounds. And since the police work very closely with city attorneys and all attorneys, felt that it was not a good thing to stay around in this city because the toxicity that occurred, especially during that last piece of, as you had mentioned before, the arrests and the implications on people who have been brought in for questioning, that he left, he stated, he left because he felt that there was a problem with the city attorney and the city being fairly treated. He overstepped his bounds with the law. And at that point, he had the opportunity to leave to a competing police department, one that we actually model our salaries on, where he can still maintain a lot of his pension, go to a place that he felt was better, which is Huntington Beach, and avoid all the toxicity that still exists in the city. That's why he actually has even implied that we have to make a full, clean slate change. If we're going to change San Bernardino, we have to change it. And this came from the police chief, not just somebody that was in a feud between city council, city attorney, mayor, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. We have to take another break. I'll be right back. You're watching Foro Más Latino. Thank you for joining us once again. We're talking with some of the candidates running for the mayor for the city of San Bernardino. And now I'm going to ask them in 30 seconds, if they can explain to you about why they should be the next mayor for the city of San Bernardino. I want to start with Mr. Castro, please.
I believe that I'm qualified. I believe that I have definitely all the credentials to be mayor of this city. I have a great desire. I have a great honesty, everything that everyone else says, except that I also have the ability to bring people together. You can't do that as a teacher and survive, literally survive, but also excel in 28 years of teaching in San Bernardino. I've worked at the junior college level all the way to kindergarten when I did my student teaching and worked part-time even with the junior college. And they were all successful ventures. Coaching-wise, we always had people that not only placed in various levels here, but in nationals. And that was done with people that were said that they weren't able to compete, against other places. Competing is all the same, especially in the political arena. I'm finding that out very quickly. I'm making the adjustments, and I plan to keep making those adjustments if you vote for me, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Castro. Mr. Nicol, please.
I was born here. I was raised here, educated here, bought my home here. I plan to stay here. San Bernardino is my home. Over the next 4 years, we have some very difficult challenges that we need to address. And this isn't about one person. This is about a community pulling together and making the sacrifices that are necessary for us to get through the challenges that we face, both in terms of our financial stability, in terms of the safety and security of our neighborhoods, of our schools. we need to address some significant deficiencies in how we operate as a government. We need to work on charter reform, and that's going to take all of us working together to address those deficiencies. As your mayor, I promise to reach out, to be a listener, and to work with you so that we can make a brighter future for our city, one that we can be proud of. I ask for your vote. If you have any questions, you can visit my website, demandaccountability.com. I look forward to your questions. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicol. Now, Mr. Corner, please.
I'm a second-generation native and a fourth-generation resident of this city, and unfortunately, I have serious doubts that even with the right people elected to office, that we're going to have an easy going over the next 4 years. In fact, the odds are very long. So I have to admit, I am one of those people that wonders, should I stay or should I leave? In fact, that was the reason that I ran in this election. I've never thought that I would ever run for public office in my life. But I thought that at this moment, in this city, for this region, somebody pretty special is going to have to step up and offer the creativity and the knowledge that is necessary in order to not only affect the lives of the people who live in the city, but people throughout the Southern California region. Because the San Bernardino is so important to all of the Inland Empire and to the rest of Southern California. And only the people who currently live in the city, the citizens who are able to vote, will have the opportunity and the responsibility to improve the lives of everybody throughout the Southern California in this election that will be historic for any number of reasons. I urge you to seriously consider what is necessary over the next 4 years, because San Bernardino will either flourish or die in this moment. And particularly, I ask you to think about what the future San Bernardino is going to look like. Will we become larger? And if we are larger, would we include a greater diversity of people in this city?
Thank you, Mr. Corner. Thank you. Now, Ms. Wendy McCormack, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity today. First and foremost, every resident in this city deserves a clean and safe environment to raise their children. And I think every single resident deserves to demand that of your public officials. I expect to at least provide that, which is the basic essential city services. We have to get back to the basics just like we do in our households when we're having financial difficulties. I think on the track that we are now, we will be through bankruptcy in the next 1.5 to 2 years. We will have reorganized and restructured the debt that there is, and we will have enough cash flow based on the cuts that we have made so far to come through and clean through so that we can then regroup after the bankruptcy is finalized. I ask for your vote in that I am the most versed in how city government works. I know what has not worked, and I know what we need to do that we haven't done for years because of certain types of leadership that has been at the helm. The leadership style that I have is everybody's included. I include everybody's ideas, and then we come up with a solution that works for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish a good luck to all of you. And we really appreciate that you joined us today. Unfortunately, we don't have more time for you guys, but our best for you guys, and I hope whoever is the winner come back. You promise? Deal?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, promise. Deal is a deal, okay? I'm going to ask you to go on November the 5th, go out and vote for the best candidate, for the best person that you think that's going to run the city that is in bankruptcy, is facing many problems. Thank you very much, and see you soon.